Are you experiencing leaking at your hose bib drip irrigation head assembly? One of the greatest things about drip irrigation is its efficient use of one of our most precious natural resources, water. A single leak in a head assembly can waste considerable amounts of water. Today, I'm going to show you how to troubleshoot a leaking head assembly so you can recapture your drip system's efficient use of water. If this is a leak that suddenly developed in a previously leak-free head assembly, the first place I like to check are the connections. Keep in mind, you want them to be just a little more than finger tight. Too tight, and you can get leaks. Likewise, if they're spinning freely without any force applied, they might be too loose. In cases like this, I just like to go through my connections one by one, perhaps taking apart the entire head assembly and then threading everything back on, a little more than finger tight, one at a time, and then giving it another test. Teflon tape should not be used with hose-threaded connections. Hose-threaded connections seal with the gasket in the female side. Teflon tape is a lubricant, which can make it way too easy to over-tighten fittings, which as we now know can cause leaking. In addition to that, the additional mass can cause more tension, particularly on the female piece, which can lead to breaking, cracks, damage, which can result in leaking. If you are using any Teflon tape, go ahead and remove it and reassemble your head assembly. Keep in mind just a little more than finger tight and see if that stops any leaking. One thing to always know, it's important not to use any tools to tighten up your head assembly. Tools can easily cause damage and resulting in leaks or irreparable damage. If the leak is coming from between two parts, take them apart and look for the gasket in the female connection. The gasket is what completes the seal in a hose-threaded connection. If it's missing, damaged, or even just misaligned, that's almost certainly the cause of your leak. If it's misaligned, simply put it back into place where it should be, the bottom of the female connection, try it out and see if it stops your leak. If you're missing a gasket or one of them is damaged and that's the cause of your leak, replacements are inexpensive and readily available. We've got some linked in the description below. If the leak started right away and your gasket is in place, make sure your thread types are compatible. Specifically, we're talking about pipe thread versus hose thread. To make it even more confusing, when they're the same size, 3/4, for example, in a hose bib, they'll thread together, but they'll almost certainly always leak as they're not compatible. One way to make sure you've got compatible thread types is to take a look at the packaging, the item page for it. Pipe threads will end in PT, for example. MPT is male pipe thread. Hose threads will end in HT. For example, FHT stands for female hose thread. If the leak is coming from around your filter, check the screen inside your filter. When a screen gets clogged up, it can cause buildup inside of water, and this pressure can eventually cause leaking. If that turns out to be the case, just give your screen a really good rinse. Though very rare in a residential setting, extraordinarily high water pressure can cause leaking. Drip components assume average residential water pressure, somewhere between 30 to 50 psi. Too much more than that, and the pressure can cause damage or leaking with the components. If your water pressure is extraordinarily high and you need a pressure regulating limit valve, reach out to us. We do have those available and we've linked them in the description below. In addition to high pressure, there's one other kind of pressure that can cause leaking or damage to your drip components, and that is constant pressure or static pressure. That kind of pressure is when the fitting or part is always under pressure. Now, the timer in a drip head assembly is rated for constant pressure. The other parts are not. A lot of the time, we'll see the backflow preventer, the filter, or the regulator, or all three come before a timer, often when it's a multi-outlet timer that's being used. Unfortunately, each outlet on a hose bib timer is going to need its own head assembly because the parts are not rated for constant pressure. When placed under constant or static pressure, they'll leak, become damaged, and begin failing much sooner than they should, often almost right away. Remember, installing the head assembly in the correct order is critical for many reasons, from protecting your parts from constant pressure to ensuring you're within municipal code. It is of utmost importance that they're installed in the correct following order: timer, which is optional, backflow preventer, filter, pressure regulator, and finally the threads by tubing adapter to connect your mainline tubing. If your hose bib head assembly is leaking, try the troubleshooting steps we covered today. One of them very well could get your drip irrigation system back up to running at peak efficiency. If none of the troubleshooting steps we covered today work to get your head assembly working leak-free, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at dripdepot.com. We read and reply to every email we receive. We look forward to hearing from you.